Filipino pronunciation. Learn it. Filipino pronunciation is something that every Australian involved in an Australian-Filipino relationship needs to learn. Firstly, to understand her. Secondly, to help her to understand you. Almost all Filipinos understand English. However, be aware that the Philippines is not what you would call a multicultural society. Filipinos are used to Filipino speaking English, and that's it. Philippines, not a multicultural society. Philippine society is really quite insular, especially compared to Australia. I grew up in Sydney, and there was every nationality under the sun living around me. Some were born overseas, some were born in Australia, yet the family and the community they grew up in meant that they still had accents. I worked with Italians in Leichhardt. I had Indian friends. There were Italians, Greeks, Germans, Vietnamese, Chinese. Going out to dinner meant what will we have tonight, which meant what nationality food are we going to have. I was a big fan of Lebanese food, I still am. Italian, Indian, Greek, yes, that's Australia. Philippines, well, different regions have their own dialects and accents will differ somewhat. However, there are more similarities than differences. And whilst I grew up understanding how an Italian or an Indian would pronounce a word, no one here in the Philippines has experiences like that. Therefore, chances are they won't understand you. You will generally understand them, but not the other way around. Filipino English versus Australian English, the issue. The issue is not so much about you understanding them. Chances are that unless you grew up in a remote part of Australia and never went anywhere, she will be the one who has trouble understanding you. And whilst you may get your back up about this being a native English speaker as you are, chances are she and her family and friends will think there's something wrong with your English. They will say you are swallowing your words. They will say you are very slung. They may even say that speaking with you gives them a nosebleed. And the truth, well, they have a point. Aussies are mumblers and we are completely unphonetic in the way we pronounce things. And fair dinkum, we have more slang words than she could chuck a stick at, my oath. Back in my first trip here in the 90s, I stayed in a pension house, which is a type of hotel, I suppose, in Cebu City. It was the Regal Pension House in Junquera Extension. I remember it well. I had it written down on a card, fortunately. I hopped in a taxi one day and asked to go to this place in my best Aussie drawl. Just need to go to the Regal Pension House. It's in Junquera Extension. Well, I had to repeat myself, and the driver was completely blank. I showed him the card, and he said it properly. He said, Regal Pension, Junquera Extension, and we were on our way. Well, I learned something. From that point on, I took careful note of how people pronounce things here, and I worked out that I'd better learn to copy it if I was to get anywhere at all. Filipino pronunciation. Tagalog is phonetic. Words are pronounced the way they're written. If you see a police car here, you'll see the word police, P-U-L-I-S. Actually quite sensible when you think about it. Police, that's what it is. They are normally, there are no strange sounds in Tagalog. There aren't spellings like O-U-G-H, which can be pronounced in maybe a dozen different ways in English, depending on the word. Filipinos will therefore pronounce words the way they are written. That means that words are not swallowed. They are normally enunciated fairly well, and generally most letters are spoken. There is no understanding about silent letters. That includes the letter R. It's definitely heard. It's not the R sound as Australians do. other peculiarities, the I sound sometimes pronounced as E. So liver becomes lever. No, not the R sound there. But it's not always pronounced as an E, so don't assume every time you see an I it's going to be pronounced that way. A pig is a pig, it's not a peg. The vowels, A, O, and U, are generally pronounced the same. So, okay, this is a stupid sentence, but it was the best I could think of. I will not cut the cat will sound like I will not cut the cut. Sorry, again, I couldn't think of a better sentence, but yes, you expect vowel sounds to be a bit limited. Going to continue here. I've got to ad lib. I found a list of common words, but the issue again, as I said, it's not us understanding them. We generally have very little difficulty. It's them understanding the way that we say things. As I gave examples before of the Leichhardt pension house. I heard somebody saying they were trying to explain to a taxi driver how to get to Rizal Park. Rizal, not Rizal. They have no way of understanding what Rizal is. I had somebody telling me he was trying to explain what we would call tuna to his girl, but he was saying, yeah, she just didn't tuna. I was just telling her about tuna. She didn't understand what tuna meant. Well, she wouldn't understand what tuna meant. It's T-U-N-A here. Tuna. If he said tuna, she would have understood. So that's the point. Just a few words here to give you an idea. Over, new, sound, take, only, little, work, no, place, years, notice the R sound, live, me, give, most, very, after, ting. Nobody will say thing unless they're extremely well educated. Mostly that will be ting. Our, just, name, good, sentence, man, think, say, great, where, help, through, much, before. I'm not great at it myself, even with all the years I'm here. But one thing I do know is that, talking like we do, we tend to do in Australia, or like how we grew up. There's no point trying to talk to somebody like that. You have to learn to enunciate. You have to learn to speak slower and try to make the words clearer. Otherwise, you will have no hope of being understood. Before, line, right, to means old, any, same, tell, boy, following, came, want, show. Look, I think you get the idea, but you just need to listen to how things are said. Place names. There's no point saying, I want to go to Tagaytay. It's not called Tagaytay, it's Tagaytay. Take note of how people pronounce things. Tagaytay. That's how it's pronounced. Paranaque. That one took me a little while to learn, but just listen to how people say things. Friend was telling me how he really liked the dessert here. Buku Pandan. Well, it's not Buku Pandan, it's Buku Pandan. So again, listen to how people say things, and learn to repeat that, and you'll get on fine. Okay, thank you. Enjoy. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it and you would like to subscribe, you can click on the little button down the bottom corner there, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. There are regular articles on aspects of Australian visas, to the Philippines on www.downundervisa.com.au. There's a blog page you can subscribe to. There is a free visa assessment form, and there are regular articles on aspects of Australian-Filipino relationships, which you can see on www.filipinawives.com.au. If you can please share these articles and these videos on any of the social media that you use, we would appreciate that. Thank you.